Martin Minarik has been with us for quite a long time. You've been to just about every martial arts studies conference, and you are a scholar of Taekwondo in many ways. Martin, how are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you. Nice to see you, Paul, and thank you for having me today.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you again. I haven't seen
Yeah,
you for a while.
yeah,
Last time I saw you was at the last conference,
yeah.
which was a lot of fun. So you kind of you've just finished your PhD, which is all about Taekwondo, and we'll talk about that
Right, yeah.
in a little while. But what led you to doing a PhD on Taekwondo?
Yeah, so basically, I'm practicing martial arts and mainly Taekwondo since my youth. And I studied theater, film, and media studies in Vienna. And during my studies, I somehow came to the came to the impression that Taekwondo is a quite theatrical martial art.
Hmm.
And yeah, because of that, I was thinking that maybe to do a bit more study on that connection between Taekwondo and martial and performance art or theater, and that's what I did in my master's thesis. Then I analyzed Taekwondo as performance art, you could say,
Hmm.
like the parts of Taekwondo which are like demonstration and competition,
Hmm.
uh, but also the training. So I analyze also the training as a performance, so that training is not only something for preparation for, like, let's say, violent conflict or competition or whatever, but
Hmm.
training has a certain meaning for itself, and this is expressed in training as performance, you could say.
Okay, so you are a practitioner of Taekwondo, and also you are interested in theatre and drama studies generally.
Right.
Um, So when you say performance, I mean, the word performance has a lot of potential meanings because when people think of performance and you connect that with the theatre, people might think of acting. So is that what you mean by performance, or do you mean like sports performance? That word has a lot of unpacking required.
Right. So, I mean, when you talk about this from the theoretical perspective, and according to Richard Schechner, there are different ways of viewing, in this case, martial arts as performance. One thing or one perspective might be to see martial arts as performance, like when martial arts, for example, is being performed in front of an audience, for example, or to see martial arts not being a performance, but to analyze it as a performance, like to have this, let's say, scientific or academic goggles through
Mhm.
which you view martial arts as performance. And I was thinking about Taekwondo as not being something like, let's say, maybe acting,
Mhm.
that you pretend to be something, but that you maybe by practicing martial arts, you're also possibly representing what martial arts is, or what Taekwondo is, and maybe what it means to you. And so in this sense, you perform Taekwondo by performing it in the training. Yeah.
So it's all about. I mean, I'm thinking when you're speaking, it's about the kind of the gaze, some kind of gaze of the other. So when you go to a class, you know you're being watched, and you know you want to do the ideal or the perfect performance, not
Right.
the
Yeah.
same as if you're on a stage. So we're always, well, if we're training, if we're in a class, we're on a stage effectively
Sure.
because we're
I
being.
mean, yeah, you're being watched by your classmates. You are being watched by your instructor, um, but you're also, you could say, you're being watched by yourself in a way. So
Mhm.
you constantly are watching yourself, and adjusting your movements to that, so that it fits a certain image you have of yourself, or you want to have of yourself while
Mhm.
practicing. So maybe these three perspectives are
Okay.
fitting here. Yeah.
So experience, in your theorizing and your observing and research, are there different types of ways to perform Taekwondo? Is there a German way? Is there a masculine way? Is there a Korean way? Or is it just individual, or is it cultural?
It is all of that, what you just said. And this is also the main problem, I think, when you talk about the question what Taekwondo is or what martial arts is. For me, the key concept here is performativity. So martial arts or Taekwondo is always that what is performed, you know. So um, it's difficult to say Taekwondo is this and that. Taekwondo is can be this, and another moment can be that. So it has uh, all these spheres that you were just talking about. Of course, when you watch Taekwondo being performed in a certain dojang in Korea,
Mhm.
it may look completely different than what you may see here in Germany, for example.
Mhm.
Maybe the funny thing is that here in Germany, for example, Taekwondo is perceived much more traditionally than it is in Korea, for example. In Korea, um, it's 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 heading in this direction. What you were talking about with Udo Mönig,
Mhm.
that Taekwondo is mainly um, some pastime activity for children or
Mhm.
some sportive event, competition wise.
Yeah.
And in Germany, you see still many schools that perceive Taekwondo as a very traditional martial arts, you know,
Mhm.
where you have certain or very, very strict rules you have to follow in training. And the teacher is some sage kind of figure and things like that. So there are, of course, there are um, very many differences between.
Mhm. So when you talk about um, Taekwondo as a theatrical martial art, I mean, do you think that it's particularly unique, or do you think that the kind of arguments and insights you have about Taekwondo would apply to other martial arts, or do you think it's particularly dramatic, or it has a particular type of flourish to its
Mm.
execution that is maybe relatively unique, or not all martial arts do the same thing?
Yeah. Yeah, again, it's the question how you or what is the specific perspective? Is the perspective to view Taekwondo as a theatrical martial arts or martial arts itself, or is are the glasses or the goggles you look through this analytic perspective, and you can analyze all martial arts, I think, from the perspective of theatricality with the symbolic meanings and features that are present in the training, for example.
Mm.
But I think the very theatrical aspect of Taekwondo, of course, is this whole sphere of foot techniques and
Mhm.
kicking and the jumping and turning and everything like that. This is very theatrical, I think,
Mm.
which also maybe separates Taekwondo from other martial arts. Then again, there is this. I mean, it's not a new trend, but it's not that old still in Taekwondo of Taekwondo demonstrations where they mix Taekwondo movement with K-pop music and dance movements,
Mhm.
and sometimes they also put a little plot in there. So I've seen some performances where the topic is, for example, the colonization of Korea by Japan, and there are these figures representing Japanese soldiers and Taekwondo performances, and they are fought against. So you see this recently a lot in Taekwondo.
Mhm.
And of course, all these practices with um, fighting, but staged fighting, you know,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
partner exercises where one is attacking and the other one
Yeah. Yeah.
um, blocking and then attacking. So this could also be viewed as kind of theatrical staging in my perspective.
Okay. I was thinking, as you're talking, I'm thinking about it might be something to do with that distance between the practitioners, the opponents, the combatants. Because say, like, let's say, for example, in wrestling or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's no space for that type of performance. I mean, maybe you can execute a technique with a flourish, but it's because of the intimate sort of the immediate intimate touch that you can't really do the same kind of flourishes that you can if you do if you're doing a fantastic kick and you execute that beautifully. There's the option to do the whole Jackie Chan, like we have to. Jackie Chan says it's about the ending. It's about the way that you end. So in his choreography, it's like you do a punch or something, then you have to end it really, really dramatically and sit down in some kind of pose. Right. I mean, there are a lot of martial arts, like say the different types of kung fu, wushu, like Choi Li Foot and Hung Gar. They're very dramatic. In fact, maybe all classical traditional martial arts, which are form-based or kata-based or pattern-based, they often have the huge finishing, and maybe Taekwondo falls into that category of a martial art where, because it's distant and because there's that visual dimension, like when you're wrestling someone, you can't see what the hell's going on.
Yeah, it's mostly about touch and sensing and things like that. Right?
Which is not to say it's not about beautiful movement and beautiful performance, but like there's something unique about kicking, isn't there? Like a dramatic kicks of Taekwondo or Capoeira, they're just like, they are a spectacle in a way that many other martial arts couldn't hope to be.
Yeah, and also meaning-wise, it's what you were writing. I think that kicking or the kick is the embodiment of martial artness in a way.
Yeah. I kind of do think that. I think that for me, so I'm thinking about this again. I thought about it a lot in the past, but there's a conference on, it's called something like Taekwondo and the Olympics or something. Do you know this conference that's coming up in November? And it's
we'll be presenting there. I handed in an abstract, and
So they asked me to contribute something, and I thought, well, I don't know anything about the Olympics, and I don't like to think about it as a sport. And I just think in the ways that it's framed and the ways that it's talked about, if you say it's a sport or it's a martial art or it's life and death or something, it's very limiting, because what you're getting at is the delight, the joy, the satisfaction of it. And this is where I've always been. I loved martial arts as a child and a teenager because of there's something indefinable in the beautifully executed high kick. It's exquisite. It's like, it's aesthetic, it's physical, it's beautiful, it's dramatic. It's got everything. I mean, that's the way you want to talk about it, right?
Yeah, in a way, yeah. And to come back to the point that you were mentioning, that that you need this this space, I think you called it, to execute this kind of techniques and do this kind of stuff. In theater studies in Germany, you call this concept Konsequenzverminderung. So like the reduction of consequences, you could say.
Okay.
This is one aspect of theatrical settings. One thing is this reduction of consequences, and this reduction of consequences then again creates the space for the elevation of technique in a way. So that the technique doesn't have to be, how do you say, practical maybe. So the practicality gets down, and the technique can be elevated then in an aesthetical way. So this, of course, is the case in martial arts that are kata-based, for example. This reduction of consequences by simply not having a partner that can disturb you in the aesthetic execution techniques.
Stop spoiling it.
Yeah, right.
I want my kick to look better than this. Yeah.
And Yeah, and in Taekwondo competition, for example, there you have this specific rule set that enables you to focus or to concentrate on these kind of aesthetic kicking and movement by punishing, grabbing the opponent, or punching the opponent to the head, or attacking the opponent's groin, for example. So by reduce consequences, it allows the practitioner then to execute these flashy kicks and whatever.
Okay, so what about the consequences of your PhD? What's your main argument, and how did you kind of go about demonstrating your case?
Sorry, can you repeat that? We're just
So
frozen again.
the what are the consequences of your argument? Do you think? I mean, who are you arguing for? Is yours a theatre studies PhD, or is it something you want to speak to martial artists or martial art teachers? Who does your work matter for? Do you think?
Of course, I mean martial arts scholars, but my perspective or my methodological approach was combining two um, theories or two academic fields that somehow have commonalities, but are not really the same. And one is performance studies, and another one is sociology of practice.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about Pierre Bourdieu, for example, and yeah, these are maybe the three academic spheres that I want to contribute to with my research.
Mm. And was your PhD research, was it like an auto ethnography or a study of your own practice, or how did you go about doing the research? Did you just take your vast experience of Taekwondo classes, or did you do specific forms of research in particular clubs?
Yeah. I focus in my research on one specific Taekwondo school in South Korea, in Seoul. Mm-hmm. And there I was part of the training for a few months. And yeah, I witnessed the training, and I also participated in the training. And my research question was mainly how or which norms, values, and ideals are produced in the training, and how this is done by viewing the training itself as a performance where meaning is created between the participants of the performance.
Okay, and what's your kind of conclusion? What norms and values do you think were produced in those classes, and are they different from your experience in Germany or other countries?
Actually, I don't want to be too much specific about that right now, because I would like to present this at the upcoming conference next year.
Okay.
So I don't want to put too much spoilers in here.
Okay.
But what I can say is that up until now, these norms, values, and ideals in Taekwondo, they can be summarized or maybe put together under the name of Taekwondo spirit. Maybe you have heard this term before, like the essence of Taekwondo, or however you might describe it. Okay. So in my research, I was thinking that there is this institutionalized Taekwondo spirit, you could say, which is always argued by being influenced by Oriental philosophies, and specifically Korean philosophies here. And this is basically what is communicated in the training. So the training is just act of communication where this specific spirit is being communicated to the practitioners. Mm-hmm. But my approach then was, and here I'm arguing in a similar direction as Pierre Bourdieu, for example. He says that practice itself has in this case, Taekwondo spirit for itself. So that there is, on the one hand, we have this institutionalized Taekwondo spirit, and on the other hand, we have this performative Taekwondo spirit, which is produced in the training itself. And yeah, my conclusion was that this performative Taekwondo spirit is not very different from the institutionalized, but it is different, and it has aspects of modernity and things like that this institutionalized Taekwondo spirit doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
And also, when you argue from this perspective of performativity, it's even difficult to say that there is one specific Taekwondo spirit at all. So the Taekwondo spirit is created in not in every dojang, but in every training session. There is Taekwondo spirit created, which may differ more or less from the Taekwondo spirit that has been created even in the session before that, for example.
Okay, okay. And where do you think the idea of a certain spirit comes from? Does it come from like a party line, like to be in this association, this is what you have to advocate, or does it come from something to do with the practice itself, like the very nature of the techniques require a certain energy and a certain ethos, like that produces a kind of a group vibe that then becomes the spirit, or to jump around like that, to be doing complicated and often very athletic and gymnastic sometimes moves, surely requires a mood in the club that you don't have to have. Maybe if you're just boxing, or if you're wrestling or something, maybe, is it something to do with the embodied practice, or is it just the tradition of this is the way we've always done it, this is what a class is supposed to be like? Do you think?
It's both, I think. What you said before was, I think, that what's, if I may paraphrase it, the motivation of speaking of a certain Taekwondo spirit. Am I right there?
Yeah, I think so.
So there are two things maybe. One thing is that Taekwondo has been always, but has been used in the past as a pedagogical tool for children and youth and the military as well. So of course there was this strategy to communicate a certain spirit that was viewed as being positive for bringing up youth and citizens of a new founded Korean country, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe also this other aspect is to separate Taekwondo from other martial arts. So other martial arts have this and this kind of ethos or spirit, and we in Taekwondo, we have this specific spirit that is rooted in Korean culture and Korean history and everything. So
do you believe that? Do you buy that? Do you buy it is quintessentially Korean, or do you think that that's just a fabrication? Like they've just said, we like this. This is our thing. This is our export. This is something that South Korea is, and North Korea in different ways, is very famous for, and therefore we adopt it as something that we think is a good expression of the way we'd like the world to perceive us. I mean, what do you make of that argument? Like it's an expression of something quintessentially Korean?
Yeah, I think to view this as the only aspect, or that this is the one thing, I think this is, let's say, problematic. But on the other hand, at the moment you put this image into the discourse, then it becomes part of the discourse. So of course Taekwondo is also influenced by this thinking, and so also the Taekwondo spirit has aspects of that, of course, but it's not the only thing. There are also a lot of other aspects being part of Taekwondo spirit that don't have anything to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
And also what Udo Mönig argues that parts of the Taekwondo spirit are also in this tradition of Japanese martial arts, because Japanese martial arts were one of the basis for Taekwondo. So of course also these narratives that were communicated there are also part of Taekwondo spirit right now. But it's all these things, it's not this monolithical thing, if you want to call it like that.
So what are your plans? You've the PhD work is done. Are you going to you're going to present hopefully at our conference in Switzerland in Lausanne next year, maybe hopefully, also in the online Korean Taekwondo conference. What have you got? Any written plans? Are you going for a book, or are you going for journal articles, or what's the approach?
Yeah, so in Germany there is this regulation to receive your PhD title, you have to publish. So I will publish my thesis hopefully soon, and then of course I would like to go for some articles, since the thesis and the book will be in German. Maybe I'd like to take some aspects of that and put them into English articles, so they can be also read by English-speaking scholars. That would be great. And thematically, I would like to go. I would like to deal with Korean martial arts further, but maybe, I don't know, maybe also Taekwondo, but also step away from Taekwondo a little and deal a little with Taekyon, because I find that quite interesting, because I'm still interested in this commonalities between martial arts and theater and dance and movement cultures like that. And for me, Taekyon is very much in the middle, maybe between martial arts and game and dance. So I'd like to dig more into this. Maybe also because this to somehow deal with these perceptions of martial arts being something different from dance. I recall many Taekwondo practitioners are trained with saying that you have to train like this and this because we're not doing dance here. This is martial arts, this is not dance. And I was always thinking, yeah, but there are quite many commonalities actually between dance and martial arts. So I would also like to go more into this. And let's see what other projects will come up in the future.
Yeah, and you want to stick with questions around performance and theatricality, because that's your other real kind of home, isn't it? That's where you like to think and dwell.
Right. Yeah. Also, in this perspective of performance being, let's say, or let's call it a goal for training, because, for example, when you're working with children in pedagogical settings, it's difficult to keep their motivation if there is no goal in training. For example, there is the goal might be competition, for example, but I myself am not so much into competition, but I still think that it's good to have a goal, especially for children. So I would like to experiment more with the possibilities of having performance as this goal of martial arts training for children, mainly to train together and to develop a performance together, and by that to enable the children to express themselves.
Yeah. I mean, you could sell it. You could sell that as well. You could be a stunt worker. You could work on the theater. You could be a fight choreographer. Yeah. It's not just about competition. It's not just about the color of your belt, and it's not.
Sure.
there's a world. I mean, there's a world of uses of martial arts that have got nothing to do with the literal fighting or the literal combat sport aspect that people think. So much more.
Right.
I mean, I totally agree. This is what I want to talk about a little bit for the conference in November, the Korean conference. The blinkers that it puts over us when we just think of these practices in terms of either sport or fighting, like self-defense or something.
Right. Yeah.
What about the economic world, the cultural world? What about the theatrical world, the dramatic world? What about the existential and spiritual world and this kind of journey? So it's really interesting talking to you about this, because now it's given me more thoughts. I'll have to name check you in my paper and say thanks to Mark for giving me all of these ideas. But it's been really nice to talk to you today, and
it was great.
I look forward to seeing you in the online world again at the conference in Korea. Well, Korea in November, but hopefully, indeed, we can hang out again in the conference in Lausanne next June, July.
Right.
That'll be good. We'll have to spar on the beach again.
Like sure. Let's do that again.
That was good. Good to spar on Venice Beach. Martin Minarik, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you, Paul.